Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Testimonial Thursday, hosted by Sister Jameelah Upshaw. My name is Marshana Mayo, and today I'm going to share my testimony of how my faith was tested during COVID. When COVID hit this country around 2021, I wasn't worried about catching it. I never wore a mask, and my motto was, I'm covered by the blood. Whenever anybody would talk about COVID, I just say, I'm covered by the blood. My faith was strong enough to believe that I would not catch it. Then my husband started displaying signs of what he thought was a sinus infection because he would get them from time to time. But this time it was different. His eyes started hurting and became sensitive to light, and he started running a low-grade fever. So the next day he went to the doctor. They gave him a COVID test, but we had to wait 2 days for the results. And they also did a chest x-ray. And they called in some meds to the pharmacy. The doctor called later that day to tell us that Jarvis had pneumonia and called in more meds to the pharmacy. That night his symptoms didn't improve. His fever increased, so I took him to the emergency room so that they could test him for COVID, hoping that we would get quicker results. Now, during all of this, I started having a headache, but it wasn't anything that I was worried about. So we got to the emergency room, and because COVID is highly contagious, they would not let anyone go back in the back with my husband. So I told them I needed to be tested too so that I could go back with him. They did the rapid COVID test on both of us, did another chest x-ray on Jarvis. The nurse came back into the room and told us that we both tested positive for COVID and that they were keeping my husband because he had pneumonia, a high fever, and his heart rate was high. I burst out into tears, remembering all the COVID stories that I had heard, and none of them had a good ending. Now things got real. Me and my husband prayed before I left the hospital, and he told me that everything was going to be okay, and that he said, I'm in God's hands now. Our son and I had to quarantine because it was evident that he had COVID too. He lost his sense of taste and smell, and I lost my sense of smell, and sometimes when I would take the dog out, my eyes would burn. I made sure we were stocked with plenty of teas, fruits, vegetables, and soups, and I fed them to me and my son around the clock. He wasn't worried at all, but me, I was worried more about my husband and my son than I was myself. I got about 2 hours of sleep the whole 6 days that my husband was in the hospital. His condition seemed to be touch and go, and there was nothing I could do but pray. I drew closer to God. I meditated. I prayed. I kept praying to God. I buried myself in the Bible, listening to sermons and gospel music on YouTube. I was missing my husband. The house was so empty. I couldn't even cry anymore. Even the dog was whining. She missed him too. And the fear of the unknown was kicking in. I needed someone to talk to, but I knew at this moment it was time for me to trust in God and His power. My spiritual father and minister of the church I was attending at the time, Brother Joe Lowe, and his then wife, Sister Floria Lowe, called to check on me. And I told them how I feared the unknown. Brother Lowe reminded me, he said, Marshana, God has not given you the spirit of fear. And for you to say you fear the unknown means that you have no faith in God. And I knew he was right. It was like one part of me was saying, God, I know everything is going to be okay, and my husband will be back home with us soon. Then another part was saying, our thoughts are not his thoughts. Our thoughts are not his ways. Our ways are not his ways. What if God decided to call my husband home? I kept apologizing to God for the way I was feeling, because I know that sometimes God will allow things to happen for reasons we cannot see at the time. So what God did was sent so much love our way through our families, our friends, our church family. So many people called and offered words of comfort. Some even left care packages on our doorstep, and most importantly, everyone prayed prayers of healing for us. Then on the evening of my husband's 4th day in the hospital, his fever finally broke. They kept submerging him on and off in ice baths. Then 2 days later, I was picking my Boaz up from the hospital. God showed me that in trying times, do not rely on my own understanding and to trust in Him. Remembering all the things that He has done for me in the past, how He has never ever failed me. This was truly a faith test that made me realize that faith and love is an action. I'm Marshana Mayo from the Broad Street Church of Christ in Phoenix City, Alabama, and I thank you for tuning in to Testimonial Thursday. Be blessed and be a blessing. And remember, God is able.